You're listening to the Law Frog Radio Show with David McDivitt and Ross Ford on Kilo 94.3 FM. Presented by McDivitt Law Firm.
Did I tell you about the time, I didn't know what OnlyFans was until fairly recently, in the grand scheme of things.
Uh-huh.
And a woman I met on an elevator, we were chatting later, and she said, yeah, my friends tell me I should have an OnlyFans account. I was like, oh, that sounds really cool. I mean, I have a bank account, an IRA, and I'm social media, Instagram. But I said, but I don't know OnlyFans. And she's like, you don't know OnlyFans? Well, she has now gone from having not having an OnlyFans account to having apparently a very robust OnlyFans account and lifestyle that goes along with it. So
wow,
yeah. I mean, I just know this from social. We don't. FYI, we don't talk.
What do you say? Let's talk off the air today and see if maybe this OnlyFans, you and me on OnlyFans together, maybe we can start generating more money than we do at our day jobs.
Oh, there's a very good chance.
Right? Well, I know.
What people wouldn't pay to see the two of us OnlyFans out?
Dude, we're like the new odd couple.
Well, it is. And how does that work? Do you take requests hey, give me $20 a month and in return I will,
I'm not sure. I think so, because I remember some actress saying she doesn't do anything with nudity, but she'll do anything you want with her feet or something weird like that. I was like, all right, well, not really my thing, but So let's get into it a little bit. We got a couple of the stories we want to talk about from the national headlines we've discussed on the show. We got a handful of questions. You can hit us up on the rock lines at 719-633-KILO if you want to text in something. We might be able to take care of you, and you can email through the entire month under the contact page on top at kilo943.com. There's a drop down. It says Law Frog. Click that. It's a quick name, number, and email address. Before we dig into it, we were playing System Down a few minutes ago. I just want to see what a lawyer's take is on the following video. Just what red flags go up? What do you think? This is from Brazil, and that band System of a Down over the weekend. They did a show. This is about 60,000 people, and everyone in the crowd is lighting off fireworks, and they all have road torches. And watch this drone fly through this chaos. Obviously, you wouldn't see a scene like this here in America because that would be, isn't this like a lawyer's dream?
Okay, so here's what's happening. I need to, because nobody else can see what we're looking at. But Ross just pulled up something on Instagram. It is a video, the drone footage flying over the stadium. And it looks like the world's largest pyrotechnic explosion. It looks almost
like a war zone. No. Or they're playing the new Doom video game. It looks like a level in the new Doom video game.
Oh, I mean, visually, it's stunning.
Stunning, right?
It's remarkable what's going on. And then you have the occasional, super flashes here and there, and then it's starting to pan out.
And then and smoke rolling everywhere.
It's incredible. Yeah. How many people are injured? Lawyers take them. Look, you can have different lawyers with different opinions on the different legal issues that might present itself with that. Do they have everything from regulatory approval to flow the brine, fly the drone over it? I'm looking at it straight from an injury lawyer's perspective. Jeez.
It's like a wet dream for an injury lawyer, probably?
Well, sure.
If that was Mile High Stadium and Metallica here in a few weeks, you'd be like, oh, yeah.
Live Nation on the hook for this?
I mean, even just the smoke inhalation alone would probably deem a couple of class action lawsuits.
How many of the people who went to that concert knew and signed a waiver that they were, going to willingly being subjected to that kind of thing? Now, listen, you do sign waivers oftentimes with some of these things, and you agree to hold the event promoter harmless for certain things that might happen. But this is on the ticket. Yeah, that's where the transaction takes place. That's where the waiver, the whole the exchange of the money for the ticket, and along with that is an agreement that you're not going to sue for certain things. But this kind of stuff is outside it. It's the way we had with the Astroworld with Travis Scott. You remember that Stampede issue down in Texas a few years ago? Yep.
Forgot about that. Yeah, people lost their lives in that thing.
We've been representing people involved in that, and successfully.
Wow.
So, I mean, these things can happen. Of course, we get calls from people who, I've talked about this before, who got hail damage. They suffered some injuries from hail when they went to a Red Rocks concert. Their claim was, well, maybe they should have canceled the concert if they knew there was going to be hail. So that's their claim for why the concert promoter or the band might be responsible. I suspect, given the production value of that drone shot, that this was all planned ahead of time, and that they encourage people to bring this, and they maybe even provided it, and then they have a separate agreement in place. Who knows? But I don't practice law in Brazil.
Yeah.
I may need to get a license down there.
I'm not familiar with Brazilian culture that much, and all I know about their culture's videos I've seen online, and of course that's not a great litmus of exactly what their great country I'm sure has to offer. But
what do you
they
know
do things
about
a little
Brazil?
weird. Well, there's usually guys on bikes robbing people with their helmets on so you don't know who they are, and just crazy videos of people doing violent things. Like it seems like it's a terrifying place to live, but I'm sure it's not the norm.
Yeah, I don't know if this is Brazil or not, but the videos you see of people on the bikes with their helmets, you don't know who they are, and they run up and they just pull a purse off of some lady, and then they just zip away.
Yeah.
I mean, it's horrible.
It is.
That's why I don't carry a purse.
Well, that's why I wear a helmet.
You're listening to the Law Frog Radio Show with David McDivitt and Ross Ford on Kilo 94.3 FM. Presented by McDivitt Law Firm.
Mr. Dave McDivitt, I sent you one story about a guy who is disgruntled and claims collusion from the NFL to drop Shedeur Sanders into the lower levels of the draft.
I love this story.
They conspired.
Hilarious.
He's a huge fan. It caused him tons of stress. And he's now suing the NFL for, wait for it, $1 million. Chance of this succeeding on a scale of 1 to 100, 100 being yes for sure, 1, 0 being no way.
You got 2?
A 2?
Yeah. I mean, and here's why I think that this case gets dismissed immediately, because the guy doesn't have any standing to bring these claims. And what that means is, in the law, in order to file a lawsuit, you have to actually have a dog in the fight, right? I mean, it's one thing to just say, hey, I'm bothered by something that happened in the world. But if you don't have the actual ability to stand in court, literally, like if you were to just think about it, standing in court and saying, I was involved in this transaction somehow, or this exchange, the courts will get rid of the case. Yeah, they'll laugh you out. So in a situation like this where he's claiming that, who's the one who really suffered here? It's Shedeur, right? I mean, he's the one who dropped 5 draft rounds.
And lost
millions of dollars in that first round guaranteed money, that 5th round option, your 5th year option, all of those things. He would have standing to make a claim if he could show that there was some kind of collusion among the owners, for example, because he's the one directly impacted. Somebody just saying that this experience that they read about caused them stress.
Because they're such a super fan of the CU Buffaloes.
There was no foreseeable way that when people are engaging in conduct, collusion or not, that this guy in some state would be stressed out because somebody that he ostensibly likes as a fan just didn't make it as far, or drop down the draft order.
As he thought he should. He's a paper delivery guy like I used to be. You're not an expert, sir. You're not an expert, sir. So, all right, so let's put a couple different stereos on this one.
Okay.
Same guy filing the lawsuit. He has an email proving collusion. Is he then at all in the loop?
No, he's still...
Okay. Not even, because it wasn't him.
Right, exactly.
Wasn't him involved.
He just sees a copy, or the NFL wrote to him and said, we plan to collude against... that brings up something else. No, that doesn't change that.
So if Shedeur Sanders, with no proof of collusion, he might be able to get this thing off the ground. Chance of winning, probably slim to none.
Well, no, you get closer to, I think, a 50-50 on that.
50-50.
Yeah.
And if he had proof of collusion and brought the lawsuit, it's then at that 99 to 100% as far as Shedeur goes.
I think so. I think so.
If someone accidentally, remember when those government douches put the guy in the war room, the reporter in the war room, and
in the group chat, the single chat, yeah.
So if someone put someone in the group chat and they were colluding against Shedeur and he got that proof, it would be a dunk.
Again, though, he has to still have a claim for damages. It's one thing to be aware of a situation that's taking place that may not be legal. It's another to then have a claim for somehow damage. You still have to have a damage. How was this guy damaged? So if you're imagining a scenario where this guy's stressed out because he was added to a signal chat among the 32 owners, right?
I mean, so let's say this fan was in the chat and he feeds Shedeur Sanders this information. Says, hey, look, they were colluding against you. And then Shedeur Sanders at the head of this kind of lawsuit would probably win it.
Yeah, that's where you'd have to go. Smoking gun.
But just a regular schmo. I'm a Chiefs fan. If I was upset about one of their moves, I got no bucket to pee in.
Are we talking about, are you a Chiefs fan?
Yeah,
God, I know. Every time
I
you
know
say
you're
it,
responsible to the Broncos. I see all that stuff all the time. I'm like, why? Why would you? I mean, did they give you a break for the last 10 years of not playing very well?
Nobody in Broncos country likes a break of not playing well. But you know what? We ride or die with Bo Nix now. So
and you got a good team.
We do have a good team.
We have to get together Christmas for the Christmas game. You, me, the kids.
How did we spend Christmas together?
And you can watch it on our OnlyFans channel.
This is the real bad Santa just came down the chimney.
It's a McDivitt and Ford Christmas.
Bum, bum, bum.
You're listening to the Law Frog Radio Show with David McDivitt and Ross Ford on Kilo 94.3 FM. Presented by McDivitt Law Firm.
I mean, I think, isn't it common knowledge they make the food look better?
Sure. And they'll add like motor oil to food and glue and things like that.
Yeah, put glue and then cook it a little bit with a torch just to give it a little bit of crisp. And there's if you haven't seen those videos, there's plenty of them where they show how you make a burger look so delicious for the photo. And then you unwrap it. It's like, wait a second.
This doesn't look in it. By the way, I've eaten a lot of Burger King in my day. I've had a lot of Whoppers. And
Whopper Jr. guy over here. Because I feel like a giant. Like I love sliders and stuff because I feel like a monster.
I like the big ones. I had a little mustard, ketchup, and pickles, and I'm a happy guy. But you know the thing is, the reason that by the way, he filed this lawsuit years ago. This thing has been kicking around in court for years.
Yeah, some of these kind of make me sad a little bit because you hear about the slow wheels of justice, but sometimes they
grow slowly, but they grow fine.
2 years to figure out where this guy could sue Burger King over the pictures they use in their ads. It's like that's a little excessive. I just shudder to think how much money and time is wasted on stuff like this.
Well, here's what's happening though. The judge was entertaining a motion by the attorneys for Burger King saying, like, look, Judge, you got to get rid of this. It's called a motion to dismiss. For summary judgment. We've done a little bit of discovery. There's just no evidence here that could support a factual finding that we've done anything wrong. That there's false advertising. And what the judge said, looking at it, is like, you know what? There is enough evidence for this to continue to go forward. I think a reasonable person could find that, given in the light most favorable to the plaintiff here, that there is some deceptive marketing going on here. Now, in the law, you have this concept called puffery. So
puffery?
Puffery.
That goes way back, doesn't it? What is with all this puffery?
There's a lot of puffery now in Colorado Springs. They've legalized recreational marijuana.
Of your puffery.
Yes.
What is that?
Oh, puffery. Well, no, puffery. Oh, Puff knows what a puffery is.
It's not weed. What is it?
So the idea that you are making a claim that's so just outrageous that we all know it's an outrageous claim. Like,
flammery.
This burger is as big as your appetite burger in the world. That kind of stuff is puffery, and people can get away with it.
Now,
for
it's
lawyers,
all subjective.
It's subjective. But when you say this burger is 33 1/3% bigger than it used to be, and all of a sudden you can measure that and say, well, actually, it's really not. It's 2% bigger than it used to be, and so here you are, deceiving people into buying your burger or saying it's bigger than the competition. My burger is bigger than your burger, and by 33%, Ross.
And that's kind of, you don't do specifics other than it'll stick you.
Yeah, it doesn't. Sometimes
keep it loose.
I'm talking in general terms here, but yes, there's a bit of a fine line between being exaggerating false advertising and puffery, which, by the way, we allow puffery in many instances. But it's not. It doesn't mean that this case is a win for the plaintiff. It just means that it can continue to go forward. So you ask, what is the next step? Well, there'll be additional discovery. They will then bring in, wait for it, expert witnesses to talk about the size of the burgers.
Burger circumference specialist?
Yeah, how wide is your burger? Like, do you have? And then they're going to get to the measurements of the burger.
Weigh out the patties. Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah. So what's the end game for this guy? You think he's going to get some money just to go away?
Yeah, I think at some point Burger King might just say, like, I don't know, honestly. Yeah, there's a good chance because then they don't. What Burger King isn't going to want, and why this may actually settle, is to have a public trial, because it will be public, where you get into all of their marketing tactics, all of that. The people who run their marketing group get on the stand. Deposition testimony is presented. Cross-examination of Burger King executives, and they really get into the nuts and bolts of how they market their burgers. They're in the business of trying to make burgers look appealing and get you to come in and buy burgers. They don't want to have that image of like the quality of their burger eroded any more than what's already claimed in the lawsuit. So in that sense, it's a very big win for the plaintiff, because it does allow the case to move forward, continue to get the leverage that they need to at least get this thing to go away and get some money somehow.
Just something. You throw it out there and see what happens.
But so many of these have failed. Claims against Wendy's, claims against Subway, like my sub's longer than your sub, like that kind of stuff. And they're just not.
Or it's not even tuna. They proved that kind of wrong.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
It is actually literally chicken from the sea.
And there was another similar story that happened after we kind of assembled today's show. But it was a guy who was suing, I forget which burger joint, because they put onions. He said no onions. They did put onions. He said he has a severe allergic reaction. He's suing for $1 million. And it turns out he tried that same thing versus Sonic a couple of years ago. It didn't work out. So he's just kind of same deal. You want to go fishing? Law fishing? See what we can get. Interesting.
You're listening to the Law Frog Radio Show with David McDivitt and Ross Ford on Kilo 94.3 FM. Presented by McDivitt Law Firm.
Custody or
Let's talk custody. I like custody. I like kids. I like kids a lot.
And of course, as a divorced father of two, you've been through it already. So
you know what I did last night? If I look tired, I took my kids. They're learning how to scuba dive.
Oh, cool.
At our first class last night.
How do they like it?
My gosh, they loved it. They made it to the bottom of the pool. They were just swimming around, throwing a ball around. It was like a couple little chimpanzees learning how to like ambulate for the first time. Like give them a little watermelon ball, and they were down there at the bottom of the pool.
I'd love to. My wife's terrified to buy it. It's like that, and just kind of ruins it.
Is it the sharks?
Not, yeah, that partially, and then she's also a little claustrophobic. I think she had a cousin that locked her in a trunk once as a kid.
It's a horrible cousin.
I know. Cousins.
We're going to go scuba diving later this year. I've never done it. I'm excited.
Oh, man, so much fun. All right, well, let's see if we can help out Holly.
Custody. Yes,
we tried
Holly.
to track you down. Holly, if you're out there, you can give us a call, but your phone said you're not taking any calls right now. So how can I get partial custody of my kids after attending CASA over a year and being put down? What does that mean? Do you know? What was CASA exactly?
Court-appointed special advocates. So it's I don't know what Holly's situation is. I will just say that it sounds like she's had. I'm gonna make some assumptions here. Number one.
Let me finish the email then real quick, and then you can fill in the blank. So, want custody of your kids after attending CASA over a year and being put down. What motion can I file that is free? I have all my documents and exhibits, but the court never takes my motion seriously. I'm sick of fighting my ex because his dad is an attorney. She always loses. So he's obviously got really good representation. She. No cash, probably being a single mom and not represented. She's trying to do it herself. That's a difficult place to be, right? I mean, I can't imagine that she could go toe-to-toe with a guy who does this for a living.
You know, here's the situation. So the question is, what free motions are there? There are no free motions. There is the ability to apply for a waiver of any of these court costs. So there is a chance that she can have some of these motions that she has to file for free. I don't know her current situation. I'm going to assume that, at some point custody was taken from her. Mm-hmm. And custody.
And that's why you have a CASA worker? Yeah,
exactly. And so they've got parenting classes there, and they do try to help people get back on their feet if they have had a situation it's made it hard for them to be involved with the children and parent. And so what you might have is an attendant custody order saying, look, dad or other parent's going to have the kids now for a while. Absent absolute termination of her parental rights, she should have the ability to petition to reinstate some form of custody with her children. Typically, after a court order dictates who will have custody or what that custody split will be, that order remains in effect for at least 2 years, and a parent can't challenge it for those 2 years, absent certain extenuating circumstances.
So the judge would set it up to begin with. So they go through the cases. Holly, we don't feel you're fit to be a mom right now. You need to go through these classes. You need to do this. You need to do that. Until then, your ex is going to have custody. And then once you do what we ask you to do, you can reapply to get custody in one way, shape, or form. Is that kind of how it would work?
It is.
And in a perfect world, obviously, we don't know the rest of Holly's case, so we're kind of throwing some assumptions.
Yeah, we are.
There.
And so this is just in general terms. One of the things that you'll see is that parents use that time to try to rehabilitate their life, get classes, get help. They may have to get treatment. It could be behavioral health treatment. It could be addiction-related treatment. sometimes people are, incarcerated, for a period of time too. And so after a couple of years, the parent can apply to modify the parenting plan.
And that's usually the time frame?
That's usually the time frame. Now, it doesn't have to be like every 2 years. It's just that you can't do it before 2 years, absent these extenuating circumstances. And there's just a very short list of things that might have changed where it's all of a sudden, very critical that it's not that you get, there's something that's changed in your end that allows you to now be a better parent. It's something bad that's happening with the other parent who does have custody, where you can say, look, it's actually not healthy for the kids to be with that parent anymore now.
That's the exception.
That's kind of the core exception.
Okay.
So what?
Well, that makes sense. I mean, just for the safety of the kids, no one's going to change in a couple of days.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't know, and I don't know whether you can say 1 year and a half or 2 years, but it definitely needs to be some time to prove. That
right.
you're
and
in
what
a new cycle.
What the courts are trying to do is provide some stability for the children. So, look, okay, we've created a new status quo. We're going to let it sit for 2 years, maybe longer. But other parent, look, you're just going to have to live with this now for at least a couple of years while the kids get adjusted. And then the judge is still only going to change it after the 2 year mark if there are compelling reasons to do it. It's not like, okay, I've waited my 2 years, I get out of timeout now. That's not how it works either. The judge still has to look at the evidence.
What have you done in these 2 years?
Right. Why should we change the status quo for the kids? And,
so where does she start then? So let's say
she can go to the website.
Assume she's done 2 years worth of rehabilitation class, whatever they asked her to do. She's attended. She has boomed and nailed it all. What is the next step? How does she then file a motion to get because I'm sure the judge is going to call you. It's been 2 years. Do you want to come back in and see if you can see your kids?
This is Judge Johnson here. We've now reached your 2 year mark. There are forms on the judicial website. So the District Court for Colorado has a website, and then it has all of the forms because these are fairly universal. A lot of the stuff among all of the judicial districts within Colorado, within the state court system. And every local jurisdiction might have some local rules, but for the most part, these motions are all available online. Forms that you fill out, you can print them. Usually, a lot of this stuff, you'll have to bring into court if you're you physically take it in if you're applying for a waiver of fees, and then you have to prove extenuating. I mean, you have to prove, for example, that you're indigent usually, with 125% of the poverty line, things like that. So I mean, there are rules for why you can get parenting time change. There are rules for how you can apply to get the fees that go along with that waived as well. So you don't have to have a lawyer helping you. I will tell you, usually having a lawyer versed in family law, if you're going to Google it, lawyers who do this, they fall into the broad category of family law. People say, well, I got to call my divorce lawyer, my child custody lawyer. That's all kind of the vernacular we use, but family law is the general category. But yes, these forms are all online. They're available to print. The forms themselves are free. Filing can end up being the fees waived. She's going to have to do a little bit of legwork, but the fact she says she keeps getting put down tells me maybe she's tried this before and her circumstances haven't changed enough that the judge is taking it to that level where they're going to change the order. I don't know.
And would there be a place she could look to see if someone would represent her for free? Is there we talked about that with some other cases, some colleges and stuff have young lawyers that might help her out? Is that even an avenue she could look into? Well,
possibly. The problem in El Paso County is we don't have a law school nearby. The only two law schools in Colorado, there's one in Denver and there's one in Boulder. Now, they do have clinics, but in El Paso County, oftentimes you rely on attorneys who are doing pro bono work. And you can find an attorney that might be doing this pro bono. The El Paso County Bar Association can be a resource to call and find out if they have an attorney on their list who is doing pro bono family work. But again, some of this stuff, I will tell you, I've found the courts to be fairly compassionate toward people who are pro se, doing it themselves in family law context. I mean, if you can, you have to marshal the evidence to show that you've really changed, you rehabilitated. And again, Holly, I don't want to presume anything, no. but this question invites a conversation that I think applies to people who might be in a situation where one parent has had to do some maturing and behavioral changes.
Let your parenting skills cook, so to speak.
Say that I missed that.
Let your parenting skills cook.
Yes,
a little bit.
Yeah.
Real quick, I don't think this, sir, but just in case. This wouldn't happen to be Holly, is it?
No, this is not.
You have a question for us, though?
I do. I submitted an email yesterday about my daughter getting assaulted at her graduation.
All right, that's a graduation. That's not a good graduation, right? Graduation of violence. Am I right? All right. Well, I'll tell you what. Hold on the line. Then we'll throw this guy on here.
You're listening to the Law Frog Radio Show with David McDivitt and Ross Ford on Kilo 94.3 FM. Presented by McDivitt Law Firm.
So my daughter's cap had a goose painted on it.
So it's so funny because he didn't tell us what it was for a while. I was like, oh, what is on the hat? What did she do? That was so offensive. It's a goose?
It was a white painted goose on top of her hat. A teacher approached her right after the start of the ceremony, demanding that her cap be taken off because it didn't meet district guidelines, which is indeed not accurate because she's exercising her First Amendment rights.
And nothing more specific as to why, just like it doesn't meet the guidelines, period.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, she said, and really it was a power struggle because my daughter told her no, that she was not taking her cap off. So after that, the teacher reached over, actually placed her hands on top of my daughter's cap, pulling it without her permission from her head. The cap was, held on by a headband, a textured headband that, would be within her hair and pins. When the teacher pulled that cap from her hair, it was pulling hair, causing bodily harm and injury to my daughter. And complete humiliation in front of everybody that was there at the graduation of a graduating class of over 490 people.
And you talked about how she's a very accomplished kid and has done very well. She's not a troublemaker, so there's no warning flags going into it. Very interesting. As we know from the Freaknik stories, simply flicking a plate of beans at somebody leads to assault charges. I had a poor buddy who had altercation and his wife was doing hair dye and put the hair dye on her head. Joke, they were angry at each other.
Oh, this wasn't a loving, I'm going to give you a skunk
it's like a stooge move,
Okay,
yeah. And that was assault, brother.
My daughter did expose herself during the graduation ceremony, obviously not to bring more humiliation onto herself. She chose to be the bigger person, and she sat there quietly composing herself until her name was called to walk up to the stage to get her graduation certificate, which she was the only student that did not walk across the stage with a hat on her head because it was taken from her.
That's the damn goose. The damn goose. Yeah. All right, then also we talked to Shane off there, and he talked about how they met with the teacher and the principal. Teacher very non-apologetic and didn't feel anyway satisfied with their response. So where does he go next? What's the deal? What do you think?
I just had a couple of questions. Right. We talked off air too. I know some of the details I would want to know, but you said that they fill out a form ahead of time to get permission. And did your daughter fill out the form, and did she get permission?
Unfortunately, no. That's where she made the mistake, and she has taken full responsibility for that.
Okay.
But that aside, other students also had their hats decorated that were against district guidelines, that had writing on them and complete coverage of the cap, which was against the guidelines themselves. So I kind of find it hard to believe that their caps were approved, even if they submitted a form as well.
All right, and we don't know, but the reason I bring this up is because if you look at a situation like this, and I joked with Ross off air, I said, it sounds like a law school or a bar exam question where they throw 30 things at you. Like, what are the possible legal issues
here? Well, based on Smith versus Lewis in 1975, and combine that with Toddles versus Winiger from 1962, it's easy to assume that these two...
Those cases have been overruled by Johnson versus Wagner, 83. So I guess one of the things you brought up, violation of our First Amendment rights, the districts are allowed to have certain policies, and if what she did violated policy, then it may be that that's not a terribly strong argument, and it could be that these other kids did get theirs approved, and it could be that the teacher, we can assume that they noticed, they didn't. But I think the real issue was your daughter individually singled out, for example. Also, the fact that they pulled the hat off, they hurt her, I think is important. There is an emotional injury there too, and oftentimes to make a claim for emotional injuries in Colorado, you have to have some kind of attendant physical injury as well, or at least be in the zone of dangers. They talk about, if you're in a car and you're in a very bad crash, but you're anyway, that's probably not the best example here. But the bottom line is, I think that gives you the support to make several different claims there. There is a potential civil right violation here as well. Now, this is a state district. It's not a private school, from what we know off air. And you don't need to give the name of the school or the district or anything, but we do know that it is a public school here in Colorado too. Yeah. And so that there are certain claims that can be made against state actors for violations of civil rights. So there are potential claims here, and you explained the course of action that you're taking, which seems very reasonable given the situation. It sounds like it's been referred to the police as well.
Yes.
Okay, and I think that's important. And, I don't want to minimize the pain that she experienced to her head when this was pulled off. It is more of an emotional injury, it sounds like to me, and more of a civil rights type of potential claim here.
I think it's been emotional to the point where she had to reschedule her last AP exam because it was due. It was going to be 2 days after, and she was just so emotionally distraught, she had to reschedule that, even to the point where, she's going to graduation parties, and the only thing that she's being asked is, what happened by parents and by other kids that were there. She can't even just get past it and enjoy her graduation because it was just completely demolished.
I think
after this incident.
I think if you want to approach this from a civil perspective, because you're approaching it from a criminal perspective by referring it or inviting the police to get involved, and then they'll investigate. A district attorney might get involved. It kind of depends on where this happened, things like that. But assume that criminal case will take its course. You can't control that. You've asked for an investigation. It will be up to them to determine whether or not they think that there's enough evidence to move forward with an assault charge, for example. If they say no, you can say, well, look, can you please revisit it? Talk to a victim's advocate. They might try to exert some pressure. You can write an editorial in the paper. There are different ways to try to exert pressure for a criminal proceeding to take place, but really you can't control that. What you can control is the civil side. And to do that, now while you can do it yourself, you may find that it makes a lot of sense to just call around. There are attorneys who handle civil rights violations. I would start there because that's really kind of where you're looking at. That if you
get that advocate you need.
Yeah, to get that advocacy. And you might have a lawyer say, look, it's given the nature of the violation, if there is one, it may not be worth your time to pursue it because you talked about her taking the higher road. Believe me, I'm not one to say she should just sit back and accept that this happened. Yeah. At some point, you will need to evaluate how long does this become part of who she is? Because if you move forward with that, it will be defining her next 4 years, 3 years as she goes to college. It will also be in concert with this claim. And there can be value in that for her. I don't mean just monetarily, but an empowerment value of saying, look, this happened to me and I didn't just sit back and just accept it. It's a bad situation. Yeah. On the other hand, there's value in saying, look, this is a really crummy situation. Like I got into a little incident with my teacher. It wasn't my fault. This teacher overstepped his or her boundary. It stunk while it happened, but,
it's all water under the fridge.
At this point, I'm focused on moving forward with my life. So there are just different ways you can look at it. I think
basically just wait to see if it's criminal charges when the police investigate. Follow that up if you want with the civil side of things. Yeah. And roll the dice that way.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily, I wouldn't wait for the police to complete their investigation before contacting a civil rights attorney. I would do that. There? Yeah, I would start there. And they're going to be, frankly, with their depth of experience, in a better position to tell you whether or not it's one of these things that is worth pursuing, or you may be better just saying, look, we're just gonna move forward.
And then the fact that it's a public school, let's say Shane's successful, is that going to impact my taxes at all?
Yeah, there are reserve funds for this type of thing, but yes, anytime.
Okay, well, just Shane, let bygones be bygones, then, brother. Let's just let it slide, man. What do you say?
No. It's definitely easier said than done when it happened to your 17-year-old daughter.
I bet, especially on such a big day.
Yeah.
All right, buddy. Hey, tell you what, keep us in the loop. Let us know what happens, because I don't think you're done with this.
Has she talked to you about what she wants?
She does. She just wants the teacher to be held accountable for her actions, and that's why we have decided that, our next step is to be, getting a hold of people within the district and the school board, because I could tell that the school's trying to swipe it. You just completely wipe it under the rug because it's the end of the year. And she just wants the teacher to be held accountable for putting hands on her. You know, the number one rule of a teacher is you don't put hands on a student, and she broke that number one rule.
You know, I'm surprised that the district isn't taking more accountability and at least saying, hey, we made a mistake here.
So I don't think the district really honestly knows about it. I think it's just the principal and vice principal trying to
keep it quiet.
And hasn't gone to the district yet.
Right.
So.
And it's a life lesson for everyone listening as well. Sometimes just a quick, I'm sorry, that was the wrong thing to do. Goes a long way.
Oh, yeah.
And that would probably fix this whole thing if she'd just taken some of the accountability. And no one, unfortunately, in this world wants to be accountable for anything anymore.
Yeah.
All right.
And you hit the nail on the head, Ross.
Shane, appreciate your call here this morning. And, yeah, you got to let us know where this thing goes from here. Well, we might even read about it on the Fox 21 News channel, website or something.
Definitely, if that's where it needs to go. So thanks for the time. I appreciate it.
No problem, man. Thanks for checking in. And that's it. Can you believe we're already done?
I'm not leaving. I'm going to just stay here. I got my light on, the camera's rolling, and we are going to start.
Dude, let's do the
Ross and Dave.
I was going to say, we'll do the pilot episode.
This is great. See if it takes off.
Of our upcoming OnlyFans. It's only going to cost you $2 a month if we get a couple million people to bite. We're rich.
Thank you for listening to the Law Frog Radio Show with David McDivitt and Ross Ford on Kilo 94.3 FM, presented by McDivitt Law Firm.